Welcome back to my channel, guys. Hi, this is Swastika, and today we are going to go on with the analysis of Hindu and PIP. So, moving on, if you are a newcomer to my channel, then please subscribe. If you've always been there, then please stay tuned. I have done my master's in political science from Jawaharlal Nehru University. I've done my bachelor's in political science from Delhi University. So, let's begin. Today, we would be discussing the following things. One is the case with Ernica Alexi, the Italian Marines. One is the Chinese claim over territory in Bhutan, the Siktang Wildlife Sanctuary to be precise. The next would be India and China, and in relation to Minister Narendra Modi's recent visit to Leh. The next would be an article on the op-ed page which talks about how we have to counter China. The next would be about the vaccine and ICMR and how are we cutting corners or are we not. Next, we would discuss some pieces of short news, and lastly, we would talk about PIP. So, Arnica Lexi case. India is to accept and abide international tribunal's ruling. So the basic issue in this was that two fishermen were shot down by two Italian marines. The center informed Supreme Court that it has decided to accept and abide by the International Tribunal ruling that the Italian Marines enjoy immunity and are outside jurisdiction of the Indian courts. So the problem is that India wants a trial by our court, but according to the international jurisdiction, which is basically by United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, we cannot give them a trial according to the Indian Supreme Court, but by the Italian way. So, according to the tribunal ruling, India is entitled to compensation for the loss of life. The Marines who are now in Italy will face criminal investigation there. These Marines will not be investigated in India, though they shot Indian fishermen in Indian territory, but according to the tribunal, this is not going to happen. The government's decision to accept the tribunal decision is in tune with Article 51C and D of the Constitution. Article 51 talks about promotion of international peace and security. The state shall endeavour to promote international peace and security, maintain just and honourable relations between states, foster respect for international law and treaty obligations in dealings of organised peoples with one another, encourage settlement of international dispute by arbitration. So the problem is that there is no convention that such persons as the Marines in such cases are immune to local criminal jurisdiction. Only heads of states and heads of government and foreign ministers customarily enjoy immunity abroad apart from accredited diplomats who are covered by Vienna Convention. So the tribunal, by favoring the Italians and by saying that they will face a criminal investigation in Italy and not in India, it's setting a dangerous precedent. Moving on, Bhutan and China. So this piece of news was on the first page, and the problem is again with China. China is like a possessive girlfriend that just does not want to has imagines issues being there when they aren't, and so once again China is claiming Saktang Wildlife Sanctuary. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, which is in eastern Bhutan and is bordering Arunachal Pradesh. So this is Bhutan. This is the wildlife sanctuary. I hope you can see it, and it's bordering Arunachal Pradesh, and China is claiming this. So Bhutan and China have had no formal diplomatic relations but have held 24 rounds of boundary talks between 1984 to and 2016. The talks concentrated on North and West Bhutan regions. Eastern Bhutan not part of the talks so far, say officials. Sakteng Sanctuary is situated close to the border with Arunachal Pradesh. In June 2020, China attempted to stop UNDP GEF funding for Sakteng by claiming it was disputed but was overruled. So Bhutan and India formally demarcated their 699-kilometer line and boundary in 2006. So the problem with China is that they constantly want to take up expansionist measures that their neighbors continuously disagree with. So China is like a possessive girlfriend. Moving on, in international relation, again in the editorial we today see this article that has been given on China, which says that Modi is putting forth three different messages to three different people with this recent visit in Nimu near Leh. So, to Chinese leadership, he's basically saying that the age of expansionism is over, the age of evolution and development has begun. So, this is the message that apparently PM Modi is trying to give to Xi Jinping. And what is this in context of? So, recently we had a border standoff in Galwan Valley where 20 soldiers were killed. Indian soldiers were killed in the face off, and to reply to this, Prime Minister Narendra Modi went to Nimmu near Ladakh, where he gave the following message to Chinese leadership. He's saying, "Age of expansionism is over. The age of evolution and development has begun." To Beijing, he's saying it must not engage in territorial aggression across its boundaries with countries from Central Asia to South China Sea. It must recall its own anger against imperialism. To domestic audience, they basically say that we are determined to face the challenges at the line of actual control. So this was an article in the op-ed, and it is by Alman M. Trivedi, who has worked in U.S. Commerce and State Departments and U.S. Senate on Indian matters. He is a managing director at Hills and Company International Consultants. So what is he saying? He is basically saying that India is struggling to navigate an economic emergency, and he's right, because obviously China is a superpower because of their economic strength, primarily because of how dependent a lot of countries, including United States of America, is dependent on China for imports. So India had started the reforms of liberalization, privatization, and globalization in 1991, but we have not been able to implement them properly. So that's problematic. In 1987, so he draws this comparison. In 1987, both the countries had an equal nominal GDP, but in 2019, China's economy is five times India. So he's basically saying that even though we started at the same place in 1987, in 2019 we see a completely different picture where China has outrun us by several miles. So India's economic woes due to slowdown in reforms because we did not liberalize land, labor, and capital. So as even Sudipto Kaviraj has basically said something along those lines, that we have had a very passive revolution, because even though we wanted to implement capitalistic measures of liberalization, privatization, and globalization in 1991, we have completely failed in that also. So neither are we completely a socialist economy, nor are we a capitalist economy. Because of that, we are suffering at the end of the day, because we are not able to navigate our economy properly. So further on, he makes the following comment, that we are taking up a protectionist policy by going by the drumbeat of self-reliance, but this will only hamper growth and constrain investment. It's a good thing that we are trying to be self-reliant, but it should not come at the cost of growth being hampered and investment being constrained. Similarly, Vietnam has inked a trade deal with EU that will slash into Indian exports. So we need to be careful of that, and we need to liberalize quickly if we are to counter China anytime soon. That is what he is saying. So, in the next piece of news, we see that ICMR, which is Indian Council for Medical Research, is cutting corners for new COVID vaccine. This they are saying in the context of Covaxin. So, Covaxin is supposed to be developed from a strain of SARS-CoV-2 isolated at NIV, and apparently we are cutting corners because we are saying that our vaccine for this will be ready by August 15th, which is a very close call. So globally, we are seeing a situation where there is a greater leeway, where even big agencies and uh, governments are allowing you to sort of flout a couple of rules to move ahead with the procurement of a COVID vaccine, because of the huge death toll involved. But that doesn't mean that you completely cut all the corners, which is what is problematic here. So the checkpoints are for a vaccine to be called a vaccine is that they must not sicken a healthy person. That's the first thing. A vaccine must stimulate the nervous system enough to produce antibodies, not more than that, not less than that. It must be tested on several thousand people in the real world who must show to be better protected than they were when they were unvaccinated. So this we have to keep in mind. So Covaxin is basically being produced by Hyderabad Bharat Biotech, which is a reputed company from what we hear. So it doesn't make sense why they would want to, get into this entire trouble with globally, because a new COVID vaccine, according to the top scientists, is not going to be ready before the next 12 to 18 months. So this is slightly controversial. Okay, moving on, Soumya Swaminathan, who is a chief scientist in WHO, says that vaccine trials take at least 6 months to complete. Bharat, so she is again basically pointing out that everything that is going on with ICMR, it cannot be so, because minimum 12 to 18 months it will take for a vaccine to be ready. It doesn't make sense for it to be ready by August 16th unless you are flouting a lot of rules, which then jeopardizes our position, because ICMR is supposed to be, Indian government backed. So Bharat Biotech got approval to conduct only phase 1 and phase 2 trials. That is also true. So it doesn't make any sense. So in PIB today, this is the news that caught my eye, which says that Indian Railways take decisive steps to transform its net zero carbon emission mass transportation network by 2030. It has already floated tenders of 2 gigawatt of solar projects for Indian Railways to be installed on unutilized railway lands. Pilot project in Bina getting operationalized soon under extensive testing and trial. Mission Atmanirbhar Bharat remains the driving force. The solar energy to make railways a complete green mode of transportation. The Ministry of Railways has decided to install solar power plants on its vacant, unused lands on a mega scale. Mega scale. Besides one project of the 1.7 MVP at Bina, Madhya Pradesh, which shall be connected directly to overhead traction system, has already been installed and is presently under extensive testing. It is likely to be commissioned within 15 days. This is the first of its kind heavy project in the world, and it is commissioned by Indian Railways in collaboration with Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited, BHEL. It involves adoption of innovative technology for converting direct current to single phase alternative current for feeding directly to railways overhead traction system. The solar point has been established near Bina traction sub. It can produce approximately 24 lakhs of energy annually. It will save around 1.37 crores for railway every year. So this also, you can remember that this is commissioned by Indian Railways and Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited, and the idea is to have a net zero carbon emission transportation network by 2030. Also, this is going to be in accordance with INDC, so we have to remember that. And pilot project and Bina, Madhya Pradesh, there is an interesting project that is getting launched. Thank you so much for listening to me. If you like what you see, if you like what you hear, please press subscribe button. That'll be great. Thank you.